Well, here I am again. I'm Terry Wilson, looking under rocks limited, leaving no stone unturned. Still haven't had my hair cut, and yes, again I'm wearing my famous preaching shirt. Funny, isn't it? Every time I seem to get to the camera I seem to have this shirt on. It's not the only one that I have, by the way, so don't be misinformed. I only have 10 minutes, as we know, so it is 1:30 PM here, so I better start. Which is the real prison? Are walls, bars, locks and chains the real prison? Or is there another prison that is the real prison and that not only incarcerates, sorry, I'm reading my own notes here, and not only incarcerates a person from freedom of movement, but also from absolute freedom of body, soul and spirit? Is there such of a form of imprisonment where walls, bars, locks and chains are of the type that no one can see? Is there such a prison in the world that not only ensnares the innocent people but terrifies them into submission by the manipulative coercion of a person's fear of death and the unknown? That it demands the very soul and absolute submission of its prisoners to its dogmatic rules and rituals. Pardon me for not looking at the camera, but I am reading from notes, my own notes and not anyone else's. Indeed, there is such a prison. But it's a prison that prides itself in being elusive to the eye and mind of those serving time within its deadly walls. Yeah. You see, I'm talking about both types of prisons. Well, really the one type of prison. How would I know? Well, I've been in both types of prisons. When I was a young renegade, I loved to drive around in cars and not follow traffic rules, or even have a driver's license or pay registration on cars, and of course I found myself in the prison of walls, locks, bars, chains, prison guards, you name it. And of course, one thing I realised, I began to do while in the solitude of walls, bars, locks and chains, I realised that I had a real freedom. And that real freedom was the freedom of knowing who I am. The freedom of being free in my mind and my soul and in my spirit. These bars, locks, walls and chains could not hold captive these parts of me, the real me. It could only hold my body in captivity. Then of course I became involved in the ministry of the church some years later, when I shook off my stupidity of my youth. And this is when I began to find the real imprisonment. The prison that holds you in bondage by the use of a person's own fear of death and the unknown. I found myself in the prison where I was even afraid to think, where I was too afraid to deviate in my mind from the dictates and the doctrines pushed into me by the professing church. But I suppose, me always being a bit of a rebel, so to speak, in the right way, for want of a better word, I began to ask questions, I began to seek, I began to want to know why. And of course we are told, you do not question God, you do not question those in authority over you, the church. Well, I had a bit of a problem with this, because if I wasn't supposed to question, if I wasn't supposed to seek into these things, why did God give me free will? Why did God give me the freedom to choose if He didn't want me to do this? Of course, I had the Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden spiel put on me, that if we didn't have freedom to choose, there would be no judgment. This is just propaganda by those who hold us spiritually captive, those who want to hold us in the prison of religion, as it's called. Now, we all know that I began to have this revelation, so to speak, and begin to see through the facade, began to see through the projected image of who these people profess to be, when I began to see these demonic looking lizard type, reptilian type people. Now that rose another question in my mind regarding reptilians, regarding these serpent-like demonic creatures that hide behind a facade, that shape-shift, that project an image. Two different types of shape-shifting, but one and the same. Why? See, this is all about control. This is the real enslavement. They don't want you to know who and what you really are, like I said before. This is why they profess to know, but we only use 1/10 of our brain and the other 9/10 will remain undiscovered. That's exactly the way the imprisonment works, to keep you within the walls of this 1/10 of your brain, 1/10 of your consciousness, so to speak. That's exactly what they want. They want to keep you there. They don't want you questioning. They don't want you stepping out into the real world. They want you to remain within this fairy tale fantasy, this fairy tale Christianity, this fairy tale religion, so to speak, as you want to call it. I often wondered, why is it on church buildings you see these gargoyles, which are very reptilian looking in themselves. Now, people have got to start putting pieces of this puzzle together. The pieces are everywhere. In there, the truth is hidden in plain sight, like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. But we have to start putting it together. Why do they have these gargoyles, these reptilian-looking creatures, over church buildings, over government buildings? Is there more to it? I'll just put a couple of pictures up so you can see for yourself. So there we have it, people. There we have it. Behind every image, behind every statue, there is a spirit. Do these images represent the Spirit of God, or something professing to be of God? Remember, we are looking at a spiritual origin. Look at the very nature of these images that have been representing themselves or presenting themselves as those representing God over the centuries. Start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Thank you.